Hey. So, it's a touch smoky out in some places of the country. I happen to live in Oregon. So while I'm in eastern Oregon and I'm away from like all the western fires, we have so much smog that right now I can only really see the tree that's closest to my window. We can't see the foothills, we can't see the mountains. It's crazy. And I shouldn't say smog, smoke. You know, it's probably smog at this point because there's more than just like smoke in there from like burning trees. There's all sorts of like chemical retardants, like they're dropping stuff on it to put the fire out, and people's homes burning, and you know, this, it's not just like campfire smoke, you know, it's a little bit more toxic. So that's why I'm sitting here on my couch to talk to you today about what we can do to support our lungs and our emotional well-being and just kind of during all this chaos. So let me jump right in. It's important for me to make this video because I'm like, well, these are the things that like I'm working on doing for myself, and so I need to get this information out there for other people because you need to know too, right? And that's just kind of what I do. I have made a list because I have a lot of things in my mind and I'm tired. And I don't want to miss any of these things, so they're pretty important. So right off the bat, and I'm just gonna read out the list. Mullein infusion and whole milk and or mullein tincture. Now, I'll jump into mullein in a second here. Repeat after me. Milk does not cause mucus. Milk doesn't cause phlegm. It doesn't make you have more of a buildup or any of that stuff. That is such an unfounded fact that was started way, way, way back in the day by this dude who would eat food and then cut his arm and see if the blood appeared thicker. And this was science back then, right? And so he drank a bunch of dairy, and then he said, oh, I cut my arm and the blood appeared thicker, therefore milk is mucus creating. But actually, now that we know real science and we've come forward, there's a scale of 1 to 10 of things that create mucus. Milk is a 1, orange juice is an 8. Right, because for your body to create mucus, it has to be your throat anyhow. It has to be something that creates irritation. So when you drink citrus, it like irritates you because of the acid, and so you're more likely to like build up a little bit of slime and stuff like that. But milk actually coats your throat and everything, and it's amazing for lung health. Now, of course, if you can get raw milk, I would go that all the way, especially if you know that the dairy you're getting it from is clean and all that kind of stuff. But when you make your mullein leaf infusion, which is fantastic for supporting lung health and opening up airways and helping you get this crap out of your lungs and just all around supporting like natural lung functions, and then you combine that with whole milk, it's amazing. It is just amazing for lung health, regardless if it's smoke related or not. If you have lung related issues, mullein and whole milk really need to be your friend. I mean, I know you might be allergic to dairy, you might have dairy intolerances, and unfortunately, you're just going to have to work with mullein. Nut juice, or some people call it nut milk, you can't milk a nut, it's juice, isn't going to be an adequate replacement for that. But you can still use the nourishing herbal infusion, and you can't buy this. This isn't something that you can get from an herbalist. You can buy the mullein leaf if you don't have it, if you haven't wildcrafted, if you don't have ability to go out and look for it. And I wouldn't in the smoke right now anyways. But you can buy the leaf and make yourself a nourishing herbal infusion. And I have a video on my YouTube about that. So, I mean, you might be watching on Instagram here or YouTube, whichever, but you can find it here on my YouTube of how to make this. And I actually want to say I made that video and talked about milk and all that stuff during a couple years back when it was a really bad fire season, so there's probably relevant information there too. And then mullein tincture, probably didn't need to look at the list for that. If you just really need to get something in you now to start helping support lung function if you're around all this smoke, mullein tinctures are really good and pretty quickly accessible option. You can order online, you can maybe go to your local herb shop, find herbalists in your area that have it if you haven't made your own already. I wouldn't say she's a replacement for the infusion. I like the infusion because she's going down, she's coating. We're also getting way more of the nutritional benefits because there's no nutrition in tinctures, and if there is, it doesn't matter because you're taking it in drop amounts. So it's like eating a single bite of carrot. It doesn't really do you any good. So mullein infusion is best. Mullein tincture is a good option to have as well. I'd probably use them together. And then we have, okay, so Linden Bloom Nourishing Herbal Infusion. Basically, she's a slimy herb. You're like, oh. I've got linden mixed with cherry juice right now, with dark cherry juice, because both are really, really great anti-inflammatories, but linden's got these mucosal properties. You don't really necessarily feel it when you drink it, but she's a little thicker. So basically, she's coating your mucous membranes all in this area, and she's helping to prevent the damage that's done by all these particles that we're breathing in. And she's really good for helping us calm down. Some of you might have watched my meeting linden tree in the wild video kind of thing, where I talked about like all the amazing benefits she has for like just supporting a really fucking stressed out body. And I think we're all pretty at our max here. I know I am. I'm like, oh fuck, trying not to have a full-on breakdown. You know, I like edge them daily, but she helps me pull back quite a bit. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about? As if I don't have enough stuff on here. Okay, so for supporting lung health as far as mushrooms go, because mushrooms, as a lot of you know, are like just like powerhouses of just like supporting our all over being. Rishi is a fantastic one. Try to make sure she's ethically sourced. As a tea, it tastes like shit. I'm just gonna put that out there. I always laugh when I see like herbalists being like, enjoying my morning cup of Rishi tea, and maybe they have a taste for it, but also like, yeah, that tastes like shit, doesn't it? You're like, you take a sip and you're like, ugh. It's a polypore mushroom, which means it likes to grow on wood, so they tend to be bitter. But you can get capsules, you can get tinctures, you can get tea blends that make it a little bit better. She is really amazing for supporting so many things. It's hard to name it all, but in this particular instance, we're going to use her for supporting lung function, lung health. Usually when you get like something from like Host Defense, which is a brand that I like, and they don't like pay me or nothing, I just like them. They use the mycelium of the mushroom. Won't nerd out on that at the moment, but they have a lung support blend, and it's basically just reishi and cordyceps. The flies are bad this year, every year, but also it's cold and smoky, so they're like, get inside where it's safe. And so anytime you open the door, it's just like, there's nothing we can do. So, you know, don't mind the flies buzzing by. But cordyceps is fantastic for helping us get more oxygen out of the oxygen we breathe. So basically, forever back in the day ago, a bunch of Tibetan monks realized that when these yaks ate these particular fungus that were growing out of like caterpillars and ants, Give me a second. They would eat this fungus, and they were able to go up higher in elevation and graze compared to the ones that didn't, right? So the monks started using this, and they realized that they could go higher and higher into the Himalayas. And it turns out what happens is cordyceps mushrooms help circulate oxygen through our body. And so a lot of people use it now for altitude sickness and stuff like that. But we can apply that to our current situation, because when we are breathing in air, there's a lot of smoke in it and stuff. But the oxygen we do get will go further to oxygenate our blood and our organs and just give us more energy and keep us from feeling so yuck. And nowadays, you don't have to consume a zombie mushroom. So what these mushrooms do is they inhabit like the bodies of like ants and caterpillars, and they control their brains, and they make them walk off and die somewhere so the mycelium can spread. But these days we can grow cordyceps mushrooms on things like rice and oats and barley. You know, you just make a substrate and they'll grow off of that. Cordyceps is just a really fantastic ally alongside of reishi. And usually you can find them together in blends that have to do with supporting lung health. Next, I wanted to talk about, are you losing your shit right now? So linden is pretty good for helping us calm down all this nervousness and stuff, but Motherwort tincture, you can even do a tea. Not going to taste super great, but if that's all you can get a hold of is like some dried motherwort, I use it for a tea. But if you can find yourself a motherwort tincture, she is going to help us calm down without sedating us in a weird way. Like, it's just like this type of fear, we need reassurance. Like, we need a hug, right? Like, we need to be like, Mom, I'm scared, you know, or something like that. Whoever was your adult figure that made you feel comfortable, if you were lucky enough to have one of those, you know, just somebody that wants to give you a hug. And Motherwort is that person. She is just amazing at being like, all right, I'm going to be all right. this is all right, without super sedating us. So she helps us step back and just take a breath and feel safe and secure without hitting us over the head with something that's a really hard sedative. Because for those of us who might be near an evacuation zone, and there are millions of us who are, the last thing you want to do is be so sedated that you can't react. So I want to help you calm down, but I don't want you to, like, not wake up when someone knocks on your door to say, get the fuck out, right? Like, because they're like, you gotta go now. So Motherwort is a really good option for that. I usually take my tinctures in just a little bit of water, but lately, just to kind of get my nervous system to ramp down, I'm putting the Motherwort tincture right under my tongue, counting to 30, and then drinking some water. I use 100 proof vodka to make my tinctures, though. So if you are getting something and it's made from grain alcohol, prepare for it to really, really burn, because it's pretty much 95% alcohol, whereas 100 proof is 50% water, 50% alcohol. Random bit of tincture fact for you there. Let me take a drink. Okay, so how sore is your throat? Yeah, I'm glad I have this cheat sheet. I'm just going down the line. So if your throat is really sore right now, of course, the Linden and the slippery things I talked about are great, but you can also make slippery elm balls, or you can find somebody who has it, or if you just have slippery elm powder and no honey to make these balls, you can just take a little bit. I cannot stress this enough. You only need like a half a teaspoon for like a whole cup of water. You put too much in there, it'll just turn into a solid thing of gel. And you just stir it and then slowly sip on it. It's gonna be slimy. It's called slippery elm for a reason, but it's gonna coat your throat and help calm down coughing and irritation, and again, protect all of your sensitive membranes from all these particles and smoke that you're breathing in. If you do have honey and you can find some slippery elm, get out of here, fly. You can check out the video. I have both on my YouTube and on my Instagram about how to make slippery elm balls. It's literally just the powder with the honey mixed together and roll into balls. It's so easy to make that you can do it with your kids, especially if you need a thing to help maybe distract them, because if you're freaked out, they're freaked out too. Even if you're not freaked out, they're probably freaked out a little bit. You know, they're like, holy shit, the fucking sky might be falling, but I don't know because I can't see it because there's so much smoke. Okay, so now I'm gonna jump on to things that we can like do within our home and like actions we can take to like mitigate the damage of the smoke coming at us, right? So a humidifier. A humidifier is a really good option because when you have moisture in the air, it basically makes it harder for all these smoke particles to float around, right? So moist air makes the particles heavier because they're wet, right? And then it sinks to the floor. You'll find dust all over. You know, that fly landed inside of my hand. I almost like karate kidded him. You'll find dust all over stuff pretty soon after you start using a humidifier, because it helps knock it down. If you don't have a humidifier or don't want to try to venture to the store to get one, you can just simmer slowly a pot of water on your stove, but keep an eye on that. You don't want to like burn your house down and cause more of a fire for yourself and your neighborhood and where you're at. But humidity is great. Even if you can't, you know, if you have got a real big space, even taking like a pretty humid shower now and then is good, because beyond helping the smoke drop and the particles drop so you're not breathing them in, it's also going to help hydrate all those mucous membranes that are just really irritated by breathing in all these particles. And remember, some of these particles are so tiny that they're going to be able to bypass like your nose and all of the back of your tonsils and things that are meant to catch bacteria and particles from going into your lungs. And even some of them are so small that they can enter your bloodstream. So anything that you can do to kind of like hold that back a little bit is going to help in the long run. So I talked about, okay, so clearly an air purifier if you have one. If you don't have one and your local like Walmart or something isn't sold out and you have a box fan, you can buy like, if they're out of or air purifiers and you don't want to buy one or something like that, you only, you know, small budget or something going on, you can buy like, these big flat filters that are meant to go into like home heating and cooling systems. And now I don't want you to put that, I've seen people doing it where they they take the filter and they put it right on front of the box fan and blow air through it, right? But I don't want you to overheat your box fan. It'll have too much resistance of where it's blowing. So what you can do is you can take the box fan and you can prop it up a few inches away. It just needs a little bit of space so the initial push of air can get out so you don't overheat your fan motor. And what that's going to do is going to push a lot of particles through that filter. It's not exactly the same as an air filter, but it's absolutely better than nothing. Let's see, if you have central air, if you do have central air and like you have an individual home and you're in control of that central air, if it's not super crazy hot out, I would consider turning it off, because most of these cycle air from the outside in, and unless you have a bunch of filters that you can keep replacing, I'm pointing there because I have mine's over there. Like you knew that. Unless you have a bunch of filters where you can keep replacing the filters that go into your unit, it'll get saturated pretty quickly and then it won't be filtering, and then you're likely pulling in more smoke than you are keeping out. You know, so if it's not crazy hot where you're at or super cold, consider just turning it off altogether and just like living with the air you have in your house, and you're not going to suffocate. I mean, there's still air getting in. That'd be crazy. So let's see. Oh, sealing off air gaps. So like we have behind here, because I'm just in my front room, over there on the other side is a big sliding glass door, and we got one of those little insert doors, so like the little dogs, we got 2 little dogs, can go in and out on their own, but there was like a little bit of a gap between it, you know. I haven't done any winterizing yet, but I did now. I went through and I made sure to seal up all the gaps along it, and I looked for, you know, my teenage son perpetually, again, his room is that way, that's why I'm pointing, leaves his window cracked or just blatantly wide open. I'm like, God, kid, air conditioner's going, or something like that. If you live in a leaky old farmhouse, anything you can do to stop a lot of air from coming in is good, because that smoke is coming in with it. Now, if you aren't sure if you're smelling smoke from like your central air conditioning or heating, or you turn on a normal air conditioner and you turn it on and you start smelling smoke, that's because it's pulling more in, because you've got like, you know, a leaky house in the way that air can get in pretty easy. Like this morning I was like, oh, you were supposed to wash out that crock pot other half, and it's been sitting there for 3 days. That's gonna be fucking gross. You know how it gets you, like, oh, I forgot about that on the counter, and it stunk really bad. And he went to turn the exhaust fan on in the kitchen to pull the smell out, but as soon as he did that, I was sitting over there on the other side in my chair, I smell a wall of smoke hit me, and I'm like, nope, we just have to deal with the fact that that stinks for an hour or so until it dissipates on its own, because it's not worth getting rid of that little bit of smell for all the smoke that it would pull in for us to breathe. Seriously, it's horrible here. It's like, I'm not even anywhere near the fires, and it's like so thick that you can only see about a quarter mile in front of you or less when you're driving, like lights on during the day type of situation. Okay, so now I want to talk about things that we can do to support our emotional health, right? Because like I talked about some tinctures and stuff, but let's talk about like some actions. Like, how bad do I need to take a drink of this? Give me a second. If I see it and I start thinking about it and I don't do it, it distracts me from what I'm talking about. So how bad are you in your head right now? How bad are you compulsively looking at the news? How bad are you just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God? Okay, we need to stop that, because to an extent, that level of stress is likely going to be harder on your health than all the smoke that's around you right now. And I know that if you're like in a level 1 evacuation or anything like that, you're like, well, I'm going to freak the fuck out because they're telling me that I have to leave any time now, you know, and that's really scary stuff. And I absolutely understand, like, the fear is a real thing, and I'm not trying to belittle it, but sometimes when we let ourselves really get consumed by it, it does more damage to our mental clarity than it does save us. Like, flight or fight is a real thing that can definitely serve us, but like, let's not cause more trauma than we need to, and let's not be so stressed out that when it is time to go that we don't make a bad decision because we're so super frazzled and like do something that ends up like really hurting us in the long run, or just endangers us, or we're just like, oh my God. So here's a few things. Getting out of your mind. getting out of your head. I don't know about you, but I live in my head, and I'm a super visual spatial person, so like I don't just have thoughts, I have like entire movies play out in my mind. I see it all like it's real, you know? And so for me, one thing that really helps is keeping my hands busy, because literally your hands, that's just not a metaphor. I mean, do something with your hands that requires you to pay attention to what your hands are doing. For me, I do beadwork. I do a lot of intricate embroidery beadwork. But if you maybe knit or crochet, embroidery in some other way, draw, write something that really requires you to pay attention to what your hands are doing, you'll still have time to kind of think, but what it does is it pulls you into a different part of your brain where you have a little bit of time to not think about the chaos that's going on. It's okay to distract yourself during all this. So like if you're like me and you're visual spatial, and you have like a brain that can just go a million miles an hour, I have to do kind of more than just hands-on stuff sometimes. So I will also put on like a lighthearted show that I like, you know, like a series. I like series better than movies because they just go forever. But I mean, that's not a bad thing when we're trying to distract ourselves right now. So another thing is stop looking at the news. Even if you're somewhere where you need to know if you're going to be evacuated or not, what you can do is set up a Google alert where you go into your Google settings, just Google Google alert, and you'll see how to set it up. And basically you can put anything in there. You can say evacuation for, name of your county, name of your state, name of your town, and anytime any type of article like that gets published, you'll get an email. And what that'll do is stop you from compulsively looking. Right, because you're just freaking yourself out every time you read about all these horrible things that are happening to other people or different towns, and you're looking and you're refreshing and refreshing and refreshing. You can't give your brain any type of rest if you're constantly doing that. But we also don't want to ignore it. So the Google alert is a good in-between. So you get the information that you need to know without reading all of the excess that's just going to compile to your overwhelm. Also, stop looking at pictures of fire. So, a lot of you probably don't know, unless you're watching me on Instagram, that my husband was a wildland firefighter, and I don't mean just like for a season or so, like when he was like 14 or so, maybe illegally young. He started fighting wheat field fires around here, which might not sound that big of a deal, but when you have thousands of acres, it's pretty substantial. And he did that all the way through and then jumped into wildland firefighting for a long time, until about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, he was able to quote unquote retire from that, and we just focus on our shop now, which I am really grateful for right now. But so I want you to know that probably about 70, maybe less, 60% of these really like scary, catastrophic photos can be fake. Hey, houses are definitely burning. And there are definitely real pictures going on out there. But every year, and like I used to be on these groups for like wildland firefighter wives and stuff, you're like, oh, fake picture popped up and it's some devastating fire that happened in a different country or a different year. But the thing is, you don't need to see it to know that it's happening. And when you look at that picture, your brain literally doesn't know that this isn't reality right in front of you. The same thing happens with TVs. Like, it's really interesting, like science subject if you dive into it. Like, our brains don't know the difference between what's on a screen and what's reality. And not to say that what is on the screen isn't reality. It's just that it doesn't know that it's not reality in front of you right now. So you're looking at this big fucking flame video, you know, like a fire tornado or something like that. And your brain says, oh my God, run, because it thinks it's happening right in front of you, right? Even it's just on a subconscious, like, instinct level. So quit looking at the destruction, quit looking at the fires, and just give your brain a break. It doesn't mean that you're living in cognitive dissidence. Said that right, I think. Probably not, whatever. It just means that you already know it's happening. You don't need to keep feeding your fear, right? So if you are super, super anxiety prone right now, like if you live with PTSD and you just like you need to like get out of your head and stop talking about it for a while. It is okay within your family or within your home that you're living to ask people to respect your boundary of not talking about it with you. Now, this doesn't mean that I want you to be in complete denial. If you are living in the evacuation zone, you're going to have to come to terms with the fact that you need to like understand what's going on. But if you're somewhere like I am right now and all this smoke is really panicking you and you know that you're not in any immediate threat from actual fire getting to you, it's okay to put a mental health boundary up and say, hey, I know that it's going on. I just don't need to keep talking about it. I don't need to keep being reminded about it. I don't need to, and this isn't like really necessarily an act of denial. It's just that for some people, if let's just say as an example, when some people are having an anxiety attack, they need to talk about it, and that helps them get out of that situation that they're in mentally and physically as well. However, there are some people when they're having an anxiety attack that if they talk about it, it makes it worse. I'm one of those people. You won't know that I'm having an anxiety attack until I have completely failed at like bringing myself down. By the time I tell somebody that I'm like, I'm having a fucking anxiety attack, I have been having an anxiety attack for like 3-4 hours and I just can't talk myself out of it, right? And so it's okay to be either or. If talking about it helps you, you can do that. However, I would maybe ask the person that you're going to talk to ask themselves if it helps or harms them, right? Because we don't want to pass on make ourselves feel better by making somebody else feel panic, right? Because that's just like a whole fucking gross cluster of stress. Okay, what am I missing here? Oh, so, okay. Remember to eat. So I know that for some of us, like our anxiety and our stress level shuts down our appetite, but did you know that when you are functioning with anxiety and stress, that your body burns through calories 10 times faster than like when you're not in a state of panic, right? It's like, oh my God, and you're so amped up that your body's just burning these calories. So even if you're not hungry, it's important to make yourself eat. Even if like you're like, I literally can't eat a big meal right now. Okay, I don't care. Eat small snacks. Get calorie heavy stuff in you. I know protein is good, but calories is where it's at. Make sure you're eating healthy animal fats. Make sure you're eating a small amount of protein. You know, eat a little bit of fresh veggies if you can. Just these little things throughout the day, because it's really easy when we're stressed out to stop thinking about it. And then that compiles into a weakened state because your fucking blood sugar crashed and you're way more prone to panic and making mistakes and falling ill when you're not eating. Your body needs food, eat some more food. And I don't mean like go out and like gorge on McDonald's. Excuse me, I couldn't even say the word. Don't gorge on fast food, you know, unless it's the only really option that you have. If you have other options, take those other options. But take those other options even when we're not in the middle of a crazy ass big fire. So let's see. Talked about eating, talked about not looking at pictures of fire. Okay, last thing. If you are near a fire, and let's say you're within 50 miles of a big fire, you should probably make a plan. With the way the fires are going, and I'm not trying to like feed into panic here, but if you are within 50 miles of a big fire, it's important to understand that with the right type of wind, a single ember can go 5 miles, right? And then you're only 45 miles from a fire. And if they go this way, and then it kind of just, that's how it gets to these places, right? So they can make all the breaks they want, which is just basically where they like make bare dirt or whatever between a fire and the next place to burn the fire out. But what happens is the wind blows, or it gets way up in the top of the trees instead of just going underneath, and then it doesn't give a shit. The wind blows it and it causes another spot fire, and they just kind of explode. So if I was within 50 miles of a fire, and we were recently about 3 weeks ago, not even that, probably, time is distorted for me right now. It's 2020, all time just kind of blends together. You need to make a plan. You need to maybe take some time to gather together important documents, things that are important to you that you don't want to lose. Remember, you have to fit it all into your rig. Worst case scenario, you have to just put all the stuff back when everything calms down and you're not going to be evacuated. Best case scenario, when they knock on your door or you find out that you are on level 1 evacuation, that means get ready to go, you can already get out of there. You can say, what, you know what, we're ready to go, and if you're able to, if you have the means to go somewhere, you can go before you get any further along in the evacuation thing. Because the thing that sucks the most is to be at level 1 evacuation and then ignore it. And then be at level 2 and be like, well, this is kind of shitty. And then all of a sudden, level 2 jumps to level 3. You got to go now, and they bang on your door, and you have no time to get any of this stuff. They literally won't let you. And then what will happen if you deny them? They're going to ask you for your social security number. That way they can know who they are when they find your body. That's terrifying. I have so many stories in my mind because, again, husband's a wildland firefighter. So there are people that are like, oh, I'm not leaving. And then they, like, find their body because they wouldn't leave, you know. But if you have a plan in place, a couple things can happen here. You can get out before the chaos of everybody else being evacuated, right? Because sometimes when everybody has to go instantly, it's hard to get out. There's so many cars, you're packed, there's nowhere to go. If you leave early, it's not as bad. The second thing is you're gonna feel better. You're gonna feel more in control of the situation. You're gonna feel more prepared and ready to go. Not to say that it'll be easy to pick what you're gonna take with you, but it's just an important step, and I guarantee you, whatever firefighter knocks on your door or whatever happens, they're all gonna be appreciative that you are ready already. You aren't the person that really didn't listen or pay attention or was just living in dissidence and didn't think that this was going to happen to them, and oh, it's 20 miles away, it can't reach me, and then I reach them, and then they lose everything. And not that what you fit in your car will be enough to like be like, oh, I didn't lose anything, but it's still better than losing it all, you know. So, I think I covered quite a lot. I don't know how long I've been talking for. I'm like, I hope my phone didn't die. I record these with my phone because I'm super professional. But I just wanted to get this information out there. You can put together care packages for people that are affected by it from some of the stuff I talked about. You can kind of reach out to your community. I don't know. I was just hopeful that I might be able to give a little bit of information and tools and just ideas and get these things flowing to help people feel a little bit better and have a way to like cope with the chaos that's going on right now. And but if you like my videos, and it feels weird to say this after this video, if you like my videos, come find me on YouTube if you're watching me on Instagram. Come find me on Instagram if you're watching me on YouTube. I've got, most of the stuff is on YouTube if you're interested in like how to make these tinctures that I'm talking about, or the infusion, or the slippery elm balls. Ton of free information on both of those places, and I'm just kind of all over. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share is probably a pretty big one with this, so people can, you know, maybe find this useful. But yeah, so didn't end that tactfully. Thanks for letting me be a human, and I'll see you next time. Stay safe. Bye.